Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Sammy here at Sammy J Stitches, and this is going to be my planner update video. Originally, my idea was to show you what I did last year or what I did this past year and see how it compares. Unfortunately, I have lost it. So, and that just kind of goes to show you that the last month or two of the year I'm not great at keeping up with these things, but I do pretty good for most of the year. This past year I was using a spiral bound notebook, just a plain notebook, and I was gluing in some of these pages I'm about to show you, and I decided I wanted to go back to the Happy Planner. I like the disc bound system. I like being able to add and remove things at will. I think I'm gonna need some bigger discs, or to take out a couple months at the end of the year until I get there, because this is already feeling pretty full. And I have a stack of papers that I haven't cut to put in here yet. So this is a very rough what my planner is going to be, because it was asked oh so politely of me that I not wait much longer. So the first thing I want to show you is actually a couple pages I don't have in there yet. These are pages I use every year that I have found extremely useful for tracking and understanding me as a person or as a stitcher. So the first is my yearly stitch tracker. And yes, I know it still says 2018 on the top. I didn't change the year. Doesn't much matter. You got your months across the top. You got your days along the side. Each box, I write in my daily stitch count. I really wish I had my one this past year to show you. So sometimes that'll have a 0 there. Sometimes I've had up to like 1,200 stitches, 2,000 stitches in a day. And I just write those in there. Now I do this from midnight to midnight on the day of. And since I work night shift, that does mean, you know, making sure I stop at midnight and change my stitch counts and things like that. I do have a tracker app on my phone and iPad that makes that more useful, because it will tell me it'll automatically start the count over at midnight. So I love this one. At the bottom down here, I will total up the entirety of the month, and then I will average it out to see how good I'm doing. Some months, you know, it's been like 300. In November, it was close to 700. So this is really nice for record keeping for myself. So I've had that for the past 2 years, last year, this year, and this coming up year. I'm going to keep with that. The next one is a year at a glance and my starts and finishes. So all I do here is I simply color a box if I start something, and down here I color it if I finish it, so I can see just quickly by looking at it if I'm doing more starting than finishing or vice versa. Also, I get an idea of what month I'm heavier in the starting area or finishing area. Again, I wish I had my other planner to show you that stuff, because it's pretty interesting to see. So these are a couple pages I keep in every year. Another one that I haven't printed out yet is my master stitch list. It will have a list of all the whips that I have currently on the go, with like a start and finish box on them to just kind of keep track. I do a lot of that digitally now, but I still like to have a page in here to write it down and then transfer the information. So again, this is my Happy Planner. It says you have so much magic within you, because sometimes you just need the positive thoughts. So I'm gonna open this up here. This is just typical Happy Planner stuff, or to this Happy Planner. This is a year long at a glance, actually 2 years. Got 2020 over here and 2021 here. Let me back out a little bit. The next one, this is like all the days of the year, really quickly mapped out. What I want to do here is I want to write the birthday for each of my whips so that I make sure that it gets touched on its birthday. I probably will add in personal birthdays too. So the next thing I have, and that goes on for a little bit, is that right now this is just a little dashboard. It's plastic, dry erase, but I plan on having an actual divider here, and this would be my yearly plans. So one of the first things I have here is from Jen Lee from Quirks and Stitches created a planner for the 24 Hours of Cross Stitch group, and this is just one of the pages where you can put in your focus whips for each month. Now the first line of this is on probably the entire thing is going to be Minnie, Alice, and a Dolly Dream. It's going to be a major focus for me this year. And then maybe I'll have another focus for each of the months. I hadn't really gone there yet, but it's a good quick glance to kind of, you know, focus. So the next one I have is a group chat. So these are all things that I'm going to focus on throughout the year. This one is not an event, but a personal challenge Cheryl at Tranquil Stitches made for herself, and it is Stitch My Hours. So basically you do one stitch for every hour of your life. And I know I'm in like the 240,000s, somewhere in there, so this probably won't be completed in a year, but it's good to work on. It's something interesting. All my stitches can count towards it because it can double dip with anything and everything. I haven't written in the stitch counts that I'm going to need yet, but I will, and this will go from 3 p.m. on August 3rd to the end of the year, and then each of these years will be a full year, and then I need to account for leap year every 4th year, which my birth year was actually leap year, so it'll make it a little easier to track that. And so I'm gonna say, like, I'll put, you know, 8,000 or whatever stitches there when I started it and when I complete it. And this is really, there's not even an event for it. It's, you don't have to post pictures. It's just a personal challenge. The next one is a really big one in the School of Magical Stitches for this next year. And this is the Read It or Stitch It challenge. And this one's actually not up to date, so this will be changing a little bit. But what I have here is like the first sections. So part 1 is the different parts of the parks. So this is Magic Kingdom. You've got Main Street, Tomorrowland, Adventureland, Fantasyland, Frontierland, Liberty Square. You each of them has a description underneath it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see that a little better. And so for example, Liberty Square, something patriotic. Any way that you can describe that for you. It may be a state bird, something about your flag. You know, it's very generalized. As long as you could tell us a story to make it work, we're going to accept that. So you can choose to either read something patriotic, maybe about war, maybe about 9/11, you know, whatever. Or you can stitch it, but you can only choose one. And unless you complete an entire section, then you can go back and do whichever one you didn't do the first time. So this first line here, I would write like what project I'm thinking about using for it. I would post the date of when I put the starting picture in and a date of when I put the finished picture in, so that I know that I did that. If I do go back and do it a second time, I can use this line, the description line, to put in the information again for the opposite. I don't plan on reading very much, so that probably won't be the case for me. But if anybody else uses this, that's an example of something you can do. And this is pages long, so that we've got the parts of each of the parks, we've got each of the movies, we've got characters, and of course it's not all of them, but it was a good list that we got from people telling us their favorite. The next is a is again from the planner by Jen from 24 Hours of Cross Stitch. They are doing a year-long ABC challenge where you try and get a project to fit each one of these letters however you want to. Sane is also doing an alphabet soup where you spend 2 or 3 weeks on something for each of these letters. So I can kind of use this for both groups. Next, this is just a, I'm going to have another section I'll get to in a minute where I just have information about each of the challenges printed out for quick reference. This is a group I recently joined called Myth and Magic Stitch Wars. It's a role-playing game using stitching. I need to know the names of all the clans. I also need to know how many stitches count for which ingredient and what ingredients you need for each of the spells. So I just printed it out as a quick reference guide and I haven't punched a hole yet. So I will have a section right here where it's reference material like that. Some other suggestions would be the Stitch from Stash grid so that you can quickly reference how much money you can make off of finishing something. You know, anything that you need to print out to just keep that information close at hand. I have a few others that I haven't had time to trim or punch yet that go with each of the groups. I will go through them now. The next one is from Sane Stitchers. They have a big yearly event right now, or starting next year, called Around the World. And each month you're going to visit a new country. Let's look at number 1 here is China. And there is 6 prompts with each one. The first one is anything you wish. You can stitch on multiple projects for this one. Any project you want for any reason. But you need to put in 5,000 stitches. It is the only one in each of these sets that you can use more than one project for. The rest of these, you have to complete the entire 1,000 on the themed thing. Unless you finish that project and then you could bring in a second one. But that should be pretty rare. So for China, for example, something that makes you think of China or has China in it, something with stars, something with peonies, an animal found in China, or your longest whip. And when they say longest, they mean horizontally long. So yeah. And then it's got each month is going to have a little something different. I set this up so that I could, you know, pencil in a project right here. I do use pencil on something like that because I am prone to changing my mind. Maybe I start a new whip that would fit better. But I will pencil in each of my projects I choose and then just put a date when I've completed it. These are supposed to be completed in January. So then of course I'd move on to the next one. Month 2 is Hawaii. March is Ireland. April is Canada. May is Japan. June is Hispanic and Latino countries. I'm sorry, you can't see that. July is Oceania, which is basically Australia and New Zealand. Deep blue. It has a lot to do with oceans. Around the world, the Middle East. I didn't have to say around the world. Moving on. Africa, fabulous cities, and the North Pole. So that helps me keep track of that. The next one I'm going to try and accomplish is a full coverage Fanatics National Parks Challenge. I forgot to add this when I was printing it. You need 4,000 stitches per park. There's 5 parks per tier. There's 5 tiers for 100,000 stitches. So again, I would just put like mini Alice in a Dolly Dream when I posted my start picture, when I post my finished picture, and moving on. Pretty straightforward and simple there. Oh, I also left a little box here if I just want to check off that it's completed. Make myself feel better. Next is another one of the School of Magical Stitches yearly events. This is the individual stitching challenge. So the group stitching challenge is going to be about building the parks. So your individual challenge would be to add resorts to your park. So these are the value resorts, and then you have the moderate resorts, the deluxe resorts, moving on. So for this group, you need 2,000 stitches each. 3,000, 4 and 5. It's a little hard to see. I'm going to pull this in a little bit. There are lines so you could check off a box after each 500 because you have to post an increment photo every 500 stitches. Part 2 to that, that's just part 1 of that individual challenge. Part 2 is to travel. You're going to start at the headmistress's house and travel to Disneyland in California. That's 1,580 miles. And of course my start and finish posts of when I do that and through all those. Part 3 is other things you can add to your park, like a mini golf course. You need 18 holes, of course. And then the water parks, Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon, and those are just 10,000 stitches straight up. So that is that. Another challenge in the wonderful School of Magical Stitches and Literature is going to be the crazy outrageous headmistress challenge, which is stitching a stitch for every word in the books. The first set of books that we are doing is the Kingdom Keepers. It is 7 books for a total of 660,000 words, 660,040 words. And what I did is I'm going to put project name. You have to do these in 1,000 stitch increments. So I would write the project name, check my start, check my finish post. I have 2 lines. Each line equals 1,000 stitches. So when I've completed it, I will know. I actually need like 3 more of these pages to make this work, but I just printed out 1 to get started with. The second set of books we're reading is the Villains series, and it is 380,945 stitches. Again, I will do it the exact same way I did Kingdom Keepers. Okay, I think that is it for what I have printed right now. I do have a couple more things on the horizon when it comes to yearly that I haven't gotten. It's too far from the end of the year for me to really be able to set goals and things like that. So later I will update and you will see my WhipGo board, because I did WhipGo last year and I kind of petered out on it, but I'm going to try it again this year, and Jessie has started a group. She will be drawing the numbers twice a month. I think that will help motivate me a little bit better to stick with it. I just kept forgetting to spin for myself. Plus I had the 2 boards and that was a little bit overwhelming. So I will have a WhipGo board printed and put in here with all of them written in. Also a master list printed out for my computer of my current things with a line to say what their goal for the year is. Because the thing about WhipGo is you get to mark it off when you hit your goal. You don't necessarily have to finish it. I will also have a resolutions page. That one I could probably just handwrite on a paper like this, of goals that I want to complete throughout the year. I did this with Sane last year, and I've done really good at sticking to it. I'm not going to accomplish every single goal I set for myself, but I'm knocking out a pretty good chunk. So I'm going to have that in here too to keep myself motivated. Again, after that, I would have a section of information. This is also where I like to keep like a any business cards I get, any addresses I get for Stitchy friends, so that I can send them Christmas cards. I'm running behind on that this year, but I will be doing it. So next I have the months. Now these came with the planner, so you can see here I started to work on this, but it's not going to work for me, so I'm going to have to adjust a little bit. And what I'm adjusting is some of these have month-long events, which I'm going to have written over here, but I'm going to do it in different colors so that you could tell, you know, full coverage Fanatics from Sane, from Virtual Stitchers, from, you know, I'm in a lot of groups, and I will link them all down below so that you can join me in my madness. And then of course certain things will be weekly. I'm not quite sure how I want those in here because they start on different days a week. If I'll just do it on the start and write the end date next to it, or if I want to get like a weekly layout to help me out a little bit better. But right now, that's kind of how my month looks, and it's not going to stay like that. I'm going to need more help. This is something you've seen before, but not in this format. I usually print this out myself and write it. This is where I would write my whips, and then I color in each of the days that I work on it. So these would have dates along here. I haven't worked on filling this in because I'm trying to finish a whole bunch of stuff this month, and I don't want to write it on here and then have to take it off or not write it, and it turns out it needed to stay. So this is just a dashboard that I can write on to help me think about the week. But so this only has like 30 something, I want to say like 33 spaces, so I really need to get my whip list down to fit in here. And I have some ideas about that, but I will go over that in a later video because again, I don't have my plans completely set in stone yet. This habit tracker, I want to use it to help me remember. Like, I'm horrible at posting on Instagram. I want to post on Instagram every day. So I would write Instagram here and mark off the days that I actually accomplish posting my picture. I'm going to need to be updating the Headmistress challenge because it double dips with everything. So it can be updated every day, along with that, my hours. I'm sure there's other things that I'll need to track. So I have a few of these in here. You also, any information I need to give myself about that stuff. These can be found at Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, or I'm sure you can print them off the internet. This is one of my favorite parts of the 24 Hours of Cross Stitch planner that you can buy from Jen Lee. It's very cost effective. And you print them out yourself, and I will go over that here in a few minutes. First is any goals you have for the month. You know, completing a page on a HAID or touching every whip. That's one of my favorites. This is also what SALs or other events you have going on throughout the month. I wish there was a few more of these and a few less of these, and these are your new starts. I do not need that many new starts a month. So I do wish there was a few more of these. I may even just write these in here. But that's a recap of the entire month to get you started. The next is their calendar. They do release these on her Facebook group. So you don't have to buy the planner to get this one and the next page, but you'll get them all at once if you buy the planner. This is just trying to get you to stitch for a total of 24 hours during the month. I'm not very good at timing myself so much as counting my stitches, so I'm going to try this again, but I'm not holding my breath. The next one is the acrostic. I'm sorry, no it's not. She has a different one of these for each month. They're all different, so it gets you thinking about something you maybe hadn't thought of before. And so this one is 24 of your favorite designers, or 24 designers you'd like to stitch. So I may use this as like a bucket list, or maybe I'll put a line down the middle and put my favorite designers and then designers I want to stitch. We'll see. So the next page I'm not going to show you because she hasn't released yet is the acrostic. I'm not very good at sticking with the acrostics, but you never know. I can try. I bought it. I can print it out. And then the end of the month recap. What were some good things that happened this month? You know, going to a retreat, buying a new thing. I don't know. Tweaks for next month's plans. Again, that's not really something I tend to do because I don't do a set rotation or anything. But hey, you never know. I may need some ideas. And writing down anything you finish. Now, those could take up the whole page. I'd love to get that many finished. So that's all I have right now. This is some stuff that came with the planner that I'm not quite sure how I'm going to use yet. And then each month we'll have those. And then I have a section in the back. Let's see. And each of these is going to have the name of a whip on the top, and I'm gonna, each time I work on that, I'm gonna come and write what the total number of stitches done was. Because one of the things I want to track is individually each of my whips, how many stitches I put in it. Now, a lot of these are already started, so they, of course, it won't have a total tally since I'm just starting this for the new year, but it'll be good to see I did this many stitches on this whip this year. And that's something I got from Cheryl over at Tranquil Stitches, because she has been tracking it this year, and I really like the idea of being able to tell you exactly how many stitches something had in it when I finish it, or at the end of the year in my recap. So that's all I have in here for now. I hope it helps. If you are in any of these groups and want any of these pages, except for Jen's, of course, you have to buy those from her, but the ones I have created for myself, I would be happy to share with you. You just message me or join me in Virtual Stitchers, either or both, I don't care. I will link my Facebook, Instagram, all that below. You can email me if you like, and I will share with you these pages I have created. This is a very fluid idea. Things come and go. Like, I may need a different page printed out to track, you know, the homework for all the different groups in the same week, so I can figure out how they double dip and how they work. I haven't figured all that out just yet. But I will show y'all as I go with that sort of thing, so make sure and stay tuned. I will try and make sure it is obvious which one are my planner videos and which ones are just regular, or if a regular has a planner one in it. Something else I would like to include, and I can get you reference to a better tutorial if me just telling you this information is not enough. But when I create these pages, or when Jen Lee creates her pages, they are made for 8.5 by 11 paper, a full size. But if you'll notice on mine, there's a lot of space around the edges, and this is because it needs to be trimmed down in order to fit in a classic. This is a classic Happy Planner. How I do that is I open this file up in Adobe Reader. It's a free program. It's safe to use. And when I when I click the printer, there is a box that says scale to size, and it says 100%. If you change it to 84%, this fits perfectly. And I can show you here, what you just saw. This is it, size down to 84%. And you can see I still have room on the edges. I could have trimmed it a little smaller if I wanted to, or, you know, there's extra room and you don't feel super crowded. So it works really great for printing out all these pages. And then I just trim it with the paper cutter to be, I believe it's 7.5 this way and 9 this way. Again, that's not exact. You can trim it a little bit more, because if you see, like, my papers stick up oh, you can't see that. My papers stick up a little bit more than the ones that came with it. That doesn't really bother me, but if it does you could fix that. So yeah, size it down to 84% and click print, then trim. And I have a hole punch specifically for this. It's by the Happy Planner Create 365 that makes these specific hole punches. However, if you were to take, for example, the cover and set it on, because these are easy enough to remove, and I take it and set it on the piece of paper, mark where your holes are, and then you can hole punch them with a regular hand punch and then cut the slit, and it would work perfectly too. That's what I did all of last year, before I had a punch, because these aren't cheap. I think I paid 20 bucks for this. Totally worth it though. I'm not saying it's not. It's just, I know not everybody can afford it. And that's what I like about the Happy Planner is, yes, they have a ton of pages and stickers and dashboards, but at the end of the day, all I need is a printer and you know, a hole punch, and I can make my own pages, and I can customize them to anything I want. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I will try to answer them as quickly and efficiently as possible. If I am taking too long to respond to you on YouTube, please feel free to message me on Instagram, friend me on Facebook, message me there. I'm more than willing to help as best I can. My camera's telling me I've had enough. I'll see y'all later. Bye.